I'm Brent Forrester. I'm an American TV writer. I got my start writing for a show called The Ben Stiller Show, which was a sketch show. I went on from there to The Simpsons, an animated show called King of the Hill. I did a little bit of work for Conan O'Brien's talk show. I have one joke on The Larry Sanders Show. And I spent about 7 years as a writer and director at The Office, the American version, and rose to the level of executive producer in the last year of that show, where I ran the show with Greg Daniels. The first thing I would say is your hit comedy TV shows might have what seems like an interesting premise to them, but don't start with premise. Start with character. Most hit shows are basically a collection of good characters in a location. There are two kinds of locations generally in the history of TV. Family, which has as its location the home. That would be Roseanne, Cosby, etc. Or Office, workplace shows. Cheers, Taxi, The Office are all workplace shows. They're both essentially collections of characters. For me, I always try to start with one character that's a breakout character. It's all you really need. If you look at it, Lucille Ball was a breakout character on I Love Lucy. Roseanne's a breakout character in Roseanne. You can have ensembles and it's great, but really what you want to do is start with one big, powerful voice. The common denominator, it seems, in all hit comedies throughout the history of American TV is that the characters should feel towards each other, ultimately, at the end of the day, like they are a family. When it's a family show, that's built in. When it's a workplace show, you have to put it into the subtext. Ultimately, these characters love each other. And if you don't have it, it just never ends up as a show people are going to continue to watch. If you do have it, you have a much better chance. The final thing I would say is the going wisdom today in the world of writers and the executives who buy the shows is that if you come up with a show that is highly personal, it tends to be the one that gets bought and made and becomes a hit. There's something about being able to write with a degree of self-revelation and personal investment emotionally that lifts the material to some higher level that is part of the formula for a hit. Another great trick in creating a comic character and figuring out how to make a character funny is simply to commit to a very strong point of view for the character in mind. And this is something I learned from the improv actors that I've worked with. I remember talking to an improv actress that I admired, and I said, "What's the key for you when you get on stage to be funny?" And she said, "Commit to a strong point of view." The example she gave was she'd been on stage the previous night and she was told, "You're a cowboy." So she said, "What does a cowboy have as a point of view?" He loves his guns and his cattle, and he's proud of his country. He's essentially a right-wing conservative on any issue that's presented to him politically. He loves red meat and barbecue. Anything that was thrown at her at this point, now she had a strong opinion on. She was never baffled for how to find a punchline because she had immediately committed to a strong point of view for her character. That, if you can do it in the creation of your characters, helps a lot. I think another thing that's very helpful is to remember that even with a strong point of view, you want the character to have strong drives, and they're not necessarily connected. A character can have strong opinions and no desires. That would be a mistake. You want to have very strong goals and desires built into your character, because when you're breaking stories, that's where all the stories come from. Stories are essentially, this character wants something very powerfully, goes after it, and then incurs obstacles along the way. Without those strong goals, you really don't have the basis for stories with drive. So the first mentor I ever had in comedy writing was the legendary Susan Harris, who created the Golden Girls. Susan Harris was never taught to write comedy. She was a secretary whose husband had dumped her right after she had a kid, and she desperately began writing spec scripts in an attempt to support herself as a single mother. But she figured some stuff out on her own, and the lessons that she gave me to this day remain the most important that I've ever gotten. When she read my first terrible Murphy Brown spec script, she said to me, "Silly isn't funny. in order to be funny, you got to go after something that's a little more serious. Write the way people talk and trust that it will come out funny. And then, here's the Holy Grail. She said, go after subjects that are difficult for you, even painful, and see if by the end it hasn't come out rather funny. Notice that she didn't say you have to go after stuff that's painful, even painful. It's okay if it gets painful, but it's not necessary. Just make sure there's a little something difficult that you're struggling with there. The sense that there is an author behind this trying to communicate something serious is very compelling to us as readers and viewers. And in my opinion, with spec scripts that I read and with shows that I watch, that ends up being the difference between the great stuff and the stuff that may be very well crafted but doesn't affect me. It's the sense of seriousness beneath the funny. Good luck, writers. Hire me when I'm old. Decide if you want that or not.